So we will start shortly. Please have a seat, please. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jiwon Choi, Director General of the Climate Change Center, and I'll be moderating today's session titled Article 6, a key enabler to achieve global NDCs. Thank you for joining us today here at the COP29 Korea Pavilion. This seminar aims to explore strategies for expanding international mitigation projects under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement and achieving NDC targets through collaboration and innovation. To start, I'd like to invite Dr. Young-Suk Yoo, Chairperson of the Climate Change Center and former Minister of Environment, Korea, to deliver her opening remarks. Dr. Yoo, the floor is yours.
Esteemed colleagues, distinguished guests, and valued friends, I'm honored to greet you all today. I'm Dr. Yoo Young-suk, Chairperson of the Climate Change Center of Korea, and it is both an honor and significant duty to convene with you for this crucial side event. The Paris Agreement provides a global framework and a collective vision for a sustainable future, with Article 6 functioning as a vital facilitator. It offers the potential to facilitate global collaboration and innovation, establishing avenues to fulfill our nationally determined contributions, NDCs, and ultimately to advance us toward the net zero future. I wish to express our profound gratitude to the Korea Energy Agency and the specialists who contributed to today's debates and presentations. Your dedication and proficiency enhance our objective today, underscoring the strength of collective efforts. Our objective today is both bold and attainable: to leverage the transformative capacity of Article 6 to expedite our progress toward the vital 1.5 degrees Celsius target reiterated at COP28 last year, held at Dubai. Through the enhancement of international collaboration, resource mobilization, and alignment of our efforts, we can build a future characterized by sustainability, resilience, and equity for future generations. The Republic of Korea is resolute in its commitment to climate leadership, having elevated its worldwide greenhouse gas reduction targets as evidence of its dedication to a low-carbon future. Article 6 presents a distinctive opportunity to enhance our influence by assisting both developed and developing countries in their climate initiatives. As we go today, I'm assured that the insights and ideas provided by our esteemed speakers and professionals will both inspire and empower us. We seek to realize Article 6 full potential for generating significant and meaningful change through open dialogue and collaborative problem solving. May God bless you all. Thank you very much and 감사합니다.
Thank you, Dr. Yoo, for your inspiring and warm remarks. We will now proceed with the presentation session. Each speaker will have 8 minutes to present their insights and expertise. Our first speaker is Mr. Luca Lore, Climate Policy Analyst at the International Energy Agency. He will discuss operational strategies to implement Article 6 effectively to expedite the achievement of NDCs. Mr. Lore, please come forward and begin your presentation.
Thank you very much and good afternoon, everyone. If I could have my slide, please, on. My name is Luca Lore. I work in the office of the Chief Energy Economist at the IEA. Please first allow me to thank the Climate Change Center and the Korean Energy Agency for inviting the IEA to this important event. I will focus in the next 10 minutes my presentation on Article 6 and what it means, broadly speaking, for investment in the energy sectors and the NDCs. As Dr. Yu mentioned before, Article 6 can be a very important opportunity to invest, especially for emerging market and developing economies. But before doing that, I would like us to start by looking at the broader picture of why we talk about Article 6 in the first place, why this was introduced and how this can be used as a matter of moving important channel of finance from developing countries to developed countries to developing countries. And so, as you can see from the chart, in the pre-COVID world, the investment in clean energy and in fossil fuels, the clean energy is a green bar, the fossil fuel is a light blue bar, were more or less at par. Importantly, the fossil fuel was slowly declining. Investment in fossil fuel was slowly declining, but the clean energy investment, they were not really taking off. After COVID, we really see a different picture in which the investment in fossil fuels have actually declined by quite a lot, because governments have been looking for ways to diversify their economies from fossil fuels. And more importantly, investment in clean energy have actually ramped up by significantly. Today, the total investment in the energy system is around $3 trillion per year, but what is important to keep in mind that for every dollar that today is invested in fossil fuels, almost $2 are actually invested in clean energy. However, if we look at the growth of clean energy, this has not been equally distributed across the world, and it's been just concentrated in a handful of major economies. So almost half of the growth is actually concentrated in advanced economies and China. So if we take China out of the picture, we'll see that what is left for emerging markets and developing economies is actually a very different picture. There has not been a growth in clean energy investment in most emerging market and developing economies, and there is overall reason. This is a reason for concern, and so we really need to rapidly scale up the investment in emerging markets and developing economies outside China in particular. And so now we know that rapid scale of energy investment is needed in emerging market and developing economies. In our modeling, in the next few years, the investment to keep up with the net zero scenario, investment in energy markets, in emerging markets and developing economies needs to almost quadruple by 2030, and also even more by 2050. The investment they really need to continue. And we really don't have the luxury of choosing which type of instruments we can deploy to fill this gap. This gap is really enormous, and it's something that has been unprecedented in the world. And so, looking at the role of Article 6, we think that Article 6 can really play an important role in filling this gap. Just to be clear, we don't think that Article 6 alone will be able to fill the whole gap, but it's an important piece that together with other policies, including regulation, subsidies in the countries that are recipient of Article 6 will help fill in this gap. And we published last year a report looking also at the potential of Article 6, in particular in African countries, in particular in sub-Saharan sub-Saharan African countries, and we see that there is a lot of potential, both in terms of financial flows that can flow to the countries, but also in terms of extra mitigation that this could bring. And for this, I would like to highlight the work that AITA has done together with the University of Maryland in terms of modeling. It's a really important piece of work, and the only modeling exercise that we have today really on looking at the investment. And as you can see, on the left-hand side, you have the potential flows of Article 6 in terms of finance flows, and you see that the dark green bar versus the light green bar, that is the energy needs in those countries. Although it cannot fulfill all, as I was saying, it can fulfill an important part, around 20% by 2030 and 30% by 2050. So this is quite important, but also, as you can see, the net mitigation potential is also quite significant. And many people ask us whether Article 6 cooperation is actually, we need to wait until the negotiations are over to start Article 6 cooperation. But actually, this is not the case. Article 6 is already, cooperation under Article 6 is already on the way. There is actually this nice chart, again, it comes from AITA. There is quite a lot of cooperation among different countries. Korea, the government of Korea has actually signed a number of different cooperative approaches with countries as well as Sweden, Singapore, Switzerland, and Norway and Kuwait. And there are many others that are on the recipient side as well. There is already quite a lot of cooperation under Article 6.2. What is actually the piece that is missing at the moment is, of course, a little bit more clarity on how Article 6.2 can be operationalized. But overall, Article 6 cooperation is already on the way. But what is currently missing is the missing piece is really Article 6.4, the mechanism, so the Paris Agreement crediting mechanism. And we are seeing that this is being discussed at the moment in the negotiations rooms. So we see that there are basically three main topics that are being discussed that are more or less cross-cutting between Article 6.2 and 6.4, that are topics related to authorization, registry. I won't go into the details now because of timing issues, but probably we're going to get it later on in the panel. The methodology side for Article 6.4, with the note from the CMA at the beginning of the COP was somehow advanced, and so we've seen that there is some positive progress already in COP, but really to be able to operationalize, especially Article 6.4, we will need to wait to see the outcomes of this COP. For now, I will stop here. I would like just to thank once again the organizers and for your attention, and just to say that Article 6, to fulfill NDCs and to go beyond, to help to be a springboard for further action, it can really be a significant instrument, and we look forward to further discussion about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lore, for your valuable insights. Next, we have Mr. Virender Kumar Dugal, Principal Climate Change Specialist at the Asian Development Bank. He will share ADB's role in supporting Article 6 implementation. Mr. Dugal, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to colleagues at the IEA for inviting me to this very interesting conversation, and I'm very, very enlightened by the presentation made by my old-time colleague Luca on the importance of Article 6 in the broader climate policy architecture. I think that is something, a common theme that we continue to work together with other development partners. I come from the Asian Development Bank, and as the Climate Bank for Asia and the Pacific, we are trying to support our developing member countries to utilize all possible policy tools to enhance investments in low carbon technologies and solutions. And in that context, we are more than convinced that international carbon markets that are emerging under the Paris Agreement are a very important part of the broader climate policy toolkit that countries can utilize especially for mobilizing international carbon finance. We think the international carbon finance is important for more than one reason, simply because international carbon finance can help project developers to incentivize investments in low carbon and technologies by simply providing additional source of funding that can catalyze investments. And I think that's very important in the current context when all of us are working together to enhance climate action. So it is very, very important that we try to incentivize or to reduce the cost of implementing low carbon technologies. So in that direction, the international carbon finance that can be mobilized through Article 6 is really very important. And I say this from the experience that we have in the Asia and the Pacific, utilizing carbon finance and carbon markets under the Kyoto Protocol. Many in this room are already aware that more than 80% of the CDM projects were hosted in Asia and the Pacific. And from that perspective, I can say Asia and the Pacific is a large amount of experience and expertise in utilizing market opportunities, and at the same time, therefore, there's a lot of expectations in Asia and the Pacific. So as a development bank for Asia and the Pacific, we are trying all that is possible for us to support countries, and as you can see here, there are a number of ways that through which we support our developing member countries. Very broadly speaking, our strategy involves two streams. On one side, we provide technical and capacity building support to our developing member countries to enhance their readiness to take advantage of international carbon markets. And on the other side, we work with the countries, our development partners, to mobilize international carbon finance through our carbon funds, because it is very important that we are able to provide an additional source of funding that can come from the international carbon finance. So Okay, in this round, I'll just try to give a little introduction on the work that we are doing. In 2018, we established Article 6 support facility. It is a technical assistance that we established with the financial support from the government of Germany and the Swedish Energy Agency. What we are trying to do is to help countries to understand the importance of Article 6 and the international carbon markets and enhance their readiness. In that context, we are providing the upstream, midstream, and downstream support to the countries, basically to understand what is the importance of carbon markets. As Luca was mentioning, countries need to look at all the policy instruments and must look at carbon markets as a part of the broader landscape of policy instruments that are available to the countries. We are working with the countries to enhance their policy framework, to develop the institutions, and also very importantly, to build the capacity of the policymakers and the private sector. Midstream, we are working with countries to identify certain sectors that are very ripe and important for countries to take advantage of international carbon markets. And finally, there's something very important. We are working with countries to develop certain projects that can be brought out to the market with the generation of carbon credits. So in that context, we are providing a very comprehensive support on the technical side. And on the carbon finance side, we have two carbon funds. In 2014, we established the Japan Fund for JCM, the Joint Crediting Mechanism established by the government of Japan. We have more than $137 million from the government of Japan, and we are already supporting a number of projects in our countries. Many of you are already aware of this bilateral mechanism that has been operative, and from our experience of supporting a number of JCM projects, I can say that JCM is a good example, or in that context, a forerunner and a good lesson for countries to know how Article 6.2 can actually be operationalized. While all of us are looking ways and means how to take advantage of Article 6, Luca did allude to a growing momentum for Article 6.2 with a number of countries signing bilateral mechanism. But here is a mechanism which provides a ready knowledge of an experience how countries can work together, generate carbon credits, and work towards mutual benefit. So this is a trust fund which is with ADB, and through this trust fund we are already supporting a number of projects. And finally, this is my last slide. ADB has established a new carbon fund
under Article 6. It's called the Climate Action Catalyst Fund. It's first of its own carbon fund that will purchase carbon credits under Article 6. We currently have funding support from the Swedish Energy Agency. The fund is up and running. This is first of its own kind fund, and we are already in negotiations with a number of project developers in our developing member countries, and we are hoping to get the first transaction in 2025. The important thing of ADB's trust funds is that while in the general market you will find the carbon transactions to be happening on payment on delivery basis, which provides carbon finance in a cash flow basis, what we try to do through our carbon funds is to translate that future cash flows into co-financing by way of providing upfront finance for long-term contracts. So this Climate Action Catalyst Fund is a continuation of this payment modality that we have been implementing through our previous carbon funds under the Kyoto Times. So this fund is another instrument from our side to support transformative mitigation actions that can help countries to work together through the cooperative approaches under Article 6. And through this, we do hope that we'll be able to help countries to work together to reach their NDC targets cost effectively and raise the ambition over a period of time. I'll stop here. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dugal. And actually, our next presentation was scheduled by Mr. Daniel Tutubanefo of Acting Director of the Climate Change Unit at Ghana Environmental Protection Agency. But unfortunately, he became unable to join us today due to unforeseen circumstances. Please kindly understand this, and we will move to the next presentation. Now we will hear from Mr. Jung-Woon Yang, Team Manager of the Climate Policy Team at Korea Energy Agency. He will discuss Korea's international greenhouse gas mitigation efforts for achieving its 2030 NDCs. Mr. Yang, please proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is Jung-Woon Yang, Director of the Climate Change Policy Division at the Korea Energy Agency. I'm glad to introduce the Korea International Mitigation Program, and I hope to have the cooperation opportunity with your country someday. Today I'll cover these two topics. First, I will talk about the Paris Agreement and Korea's international mitigation program. Korea's 2030 NDC is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40% from the peak in 2018. Greenhouse gas emissions was 728 million tons in 2018, and the amount to be reduced in 2030 is 291 million tons. Of the total reduction target, the amount to be secured through international reductions under the 2030 NDC is 37.5 million tons, accounting for 12.8% of the reduction amount required in 2030. The Paris Agreement is an international treaty that unites all nations to combat climate change and adapt to its effect. The Paris Agreement is a bottom-up, non-punitive system that aims to create a universal climate change response system in which both developed and developing countries participate. Each party voluntarily decides on greenhouse gas reduction targets and implements them. The agreement includes mitigation, adoption, finance, technology transfer, capacity building, and transparency. Since 2020, most of the countries have submitted their national climate action plans, known as nationally determined contributions. Countries have to submit increasingly ambitious climate action on a 5-year cycle. Each successive NDC is meant to reflect an increasingly higher degree of ambition compared to the previous version. In the NDC, countries contain climate action plans to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and to build resilience to adapt to impacts of climate change. The Paris Agreement provides a framework for international cooperation on climate change. Korea's international mitigation program focuses on reducing greenhouse gas emissions through collaboration with other countries under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. This program supports achieving Korea's NDC target of 37.5 million tons by 2030. It involves voluntary cooperation and continuous negotiation with effort directed towards the sustainable development of host countries and the successful implementation of the NDC. This is basic concept of the international mitigation program. Korean companies and Korean government invest in emissions reduction activities using climate technologies, and host countries approve the transfer of ITMOs to Korea. These activities contribute to its sustainable development and help achieve Korea's NDC goals. This includes not only emission reductions, but also job creation, community development, pollution prevention, and promoting various SDGs. Ultimately, the program aims for net zero emissions with socio-economic benefits for both countries. This slide compares innovative approaches of the international mitigation program and the traditional one. The traditional approach is time-consuming and error-prone, relying heavily on government officials. In contrast, the innovative approach involves simultaneous development of activities and frameworks, engaging both government officials and participants from the beginning. This method minimizes errors and fosters collaborative progress in the Article 6 market with partner countries. We can learn by doing and minimize mistakes through demonstration projects. This slide highlights various areas of cooperation in the international mitigation program. We could cooperate on joint study and capacity building. Areas of potential collaboration include methodologies and MRV development on the industry and energy sectors, and establishing national greenhouse gas MRV infrastructure. Additionally, we accelerate implementation by connecting with existing programs like ODA, overseas support, private and public investment initiatives. Now let's move on to the second part. In 2023, we launched a public notice for bidding on the international mitigation project, focusing on overseas greenhouse gas reduction activities under Article 6. The program had a total budget of $4.6 billion, supporting up to $2.3 billion per project. It covered costs for implementing activities in the industrial and energy sectors, including installation and construction. Out of 15 applications from 7 countries, 4 activities in 2 countries have been selected and are currently underway, with an estimated annual emissions reduction of 1.82 million tons. The project selected in the 2023 International Mitigation Program is the biomass fuel switch. This project converts waste to energy by using biomass instead of coal, reducing greenhouse gas emission and promoting sustainable biomass use. It aims to generate employment, enhance agricultural growth, and improve food security without disrupting local ecosystems. The project also contributes to the competitiveness of agriculture and rural areas by reducing waste and improving energy security. We have 3 more projects, which is to improve the process of coal kiln in brick factory in Vietnam, a project to install rooftop solar power plants in the industrial complex, project that recovers, purifies, and regenerates waste refrigerant in Vietnam too. In 2024, we launched another public notice for the International Mitigation Program. The program has a total budget of $25.3 million, supporting up to $4.6 billion per project. Out of 9 applications from 4 countries, 8 projects have been identified as eligible, with ongoing negotiations with the host countries. The estimated annual emission reduction from this project is 7.89 million tons. We have one project is to build battery charging infrastructure for electric motorcycle in Cambodia. In 2024, we also launched a new program called the Feasibility Study for International Mitigation Program to support the Korean companies' overseas emission reduction projects potential under Article 6. The program supports pre-feasibility study and main feasibility studies with a budget of $1.53 million US dollars, covering up to 80% of project cost. This year, 19 activities from 11 countries applied, and 10 activities in 7 countries were selected. With the feasibility study agreement with KEA in June 2024, the surveys for these projects are progressing as per the schedule. We have another project like solar power plant in Mongolia, landfill gas power generation in Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan, introduction of heat pumps for heating and cooling facilities in building or farms in Uzbekistan, improvement of efficiency of water supply facilities in energy-intensive business in Vietnam. That's my whole presentation. Thanks for your listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yang, for outlining Korea's mitigation strategies. Our final presentation is by Ms. Jina Kang, Team Manager of the Development Cooperation Team at the Climate Change Center. She will address the critical role of the private sector in operationalizing Article 6 mechanisms. Ms. Kang, the floor is yours.
Hello, hi, I'm Gina from CCC. I'm a team manager of a global development cooperation team from CCC. So my topic focuses on the mobilizing private sector participation in Article 6, and we'd like to take this opportunity to share our activities and some of the experience in forging partnership with a diverse range of stakeholders. So I'd like to quickly address some of the key progress made on the implementation of Article 6 since COP26. At COP26, the Article 6 rulebook and the adoption of the carbon market guidelines was completed, ensuring the integrity and the transparency of the carbon market. At COP27, the guidelines for the international registry and mechanism was adopted, including the ITMO and corresponding adjustments principles. At COP28, we all know that not much decision was made on the Article 6. However, many initiatives and achievements have undertaken, and we really believe that these were the signals to enhance the awareness and the interest of the carbon market. We're at COP29, the first day. The international carbon market standards have been agreed. Some of the more detailed, the draft was released. However, the further discussion is expected for the outstanding, the issues of especially for the registry structure, authorization, revocation, and reporting and transparency. This is the current status of the climate finance. As of 22, the climate finance was mobilized and provided about the $100 billion US dollars, but it's still insufficient to support the climate response efforts, particularly in developing countries. We all know, we've been very aware that, we need about the $3 to $6 trillion dollars for the annual climate finance needed. And if you can see, the participation from the private sector is much lower than the participation from the public. And also, given the limitations of the public funding, that there is a critical need to more effectively engage the private resources. Just briefly touching upon the Korea's NDC, in 23, the Korea government announced the updated NDC. There was a reduce in the industrial burden and increase in the international mitigation. KETS, as a first nationwide cap and trade program operated in Asia, allows the offset credits up to 5% in the compliance obligations. And this number is huge, and the Korean government is highly encouraging the companies to utilize the Article 6 mechanism to use it toward the achievement of the Korean NDC. So Korea government is actively implementing the Article 6 by engaging bilateral agreements with 5 signed. They're actively discussing with the 10 countries, and we'd like to see more soon in the future. I'd like to introduce ourselves and what we do. Climate Change Center was founded in 2008 as Korea's first non-governmental organization to raise the climate issues. Our efforts to realize a low-carbon society are centered around the 4 core areas: climate awareness, green leadership, policy advocacy, and global cooperation. With our commitment to global cooperation, it's enhanced the climate response capabilities of developing countries and also developing projects aligned with the NDC for both demand-driven. To doing that, our strategic approaches are to diversifying the domestic and international partnerships, to strengthen the collaboration with various stakeholders and leverage global networks. Second, enhancing the capacity building in developing countries, prioritizing the support for their sustainable development effort. And lastly, promoting the technology transfer and expanding private sector participation to efficiently utilize the innovative climate technologies and financial resources. And as an NGO, our role is to involve the connecting the stakeholders and mobilize the capabilities to support these efforts. So over the years, we have been closely working with the governments of the developing countries, and we have managed to implement several community-based projects under CDM. The local governments help design the concept note and secure the project allocation and management of the implementation. We have also worked with the companies from private and public sectors. As you can see, for our Myanmar project, the investor was one of the company from the SK Group. It's Korea's second largest conglomerate. And for our project in Ghana, the investor is Korea East West Power. They are the state-owned company, and so through the investment from the private sector and also the private sector, we were able to see the over 2 million carbon emission reductions is expected, and over 4,000 local jobs have been created, and this project is designed for the contribution to the NDC, and from the credits generated from this project have already transitioned to Korea offset credits. So, and not only the carbon credits, but over 4,000 local jobs have been created, and also we've seen the significant behavior changes have been observed. And we also have experience supporting the demand-driven project in VCM market. And this project is designed to attract the Korean companies to attract the investment from the sustainable projects in developing countries through private companies, and also fulfilling the corporate ESG objectives. So as a result, we have managed to invest in 362 projects since 2019. Last but not least, building on the success of our CDM and VCM projects, we have broadened our scope to include Article 6.2 projects as well. So from this year, we are conducting the feasibility studies on the potential of the 6.2 projects, making contribution to the NDC of both Korea and developing countries. And as Mr. Young has introduced as the Korea's government subsidy, we are also using this subsidy to conduct the feasibility studies of the potential 6.2 projects. So from our experience working with private companies, these are some of the important factors that we have realized, we have learned. The private sector's role in Article 6, they really provide a substantial capital for major climate initiatives, actively narrowing the funding gaps crucial to international climate strategies. And also, they provide innovating solutions for reducing the carbon emissions and enhance the resilience against the climate impact. And they also leverage extensive real-world experience to deliver the comprehensive project management from initial planning through the operation and ongoing maintenance. And they also equip the partners to stakeholders with the necessary technical skills and industry insight. Yes, and lastly, engaging closely with the government to shape and refine the regulatory frameworks that facilitate the effective implementation of Article 6. So this is for me for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina, for your thought-provoking presentation and experiences. Thank you again to all our presenters for their insightful contributions. We will now transition to the panel discussion, but before that, we will have a group photo session with all the presenters and panelists. Please come forward and everybody and smile. Please come. Okay, everybody, please have a seat for. Yeah, the panel will feature all our speakers, and Mr. Andrea Bonzani, International Policy Director at the International Emissions Trading Association, will moderate the discussion and provide additional perspectives. Everybody, please have a seat in front. And over to you, Mr. Bonzani.
Thank you. Great to be here. Like all of you, I listened with a lot of interest to the presentation of our four speakers. It's a pity we're missing a perspective from the other side, from the countries, usually developing countries that are hosting the project activities. But I think especially with VK and Luca, we have two experts that are used to interacting with these countries, so they will make up of that and provide great insights into that. So we have about 45 minutes, and I'll move immediately to the questions I have prepared. I'll ask one follow-up question to each of the panelists further to their presentations. And I want to ask the same question to Luca and VK based on their experience working with governments that are already engaging or want to engage in Article 6. So we heard from you about the potential. We see at AITA, and I'll say a few words about AITA as well, we see the interest that the private sector has in designing this policy and participating in this policy. But why have we not seen a much faster growth of these activities? What are the barriers, and what are the elements that countries need to put in place to then take advantage of Article 6? Luca or VK, in order.
Okay, thanks very much, Andrea, for the question. I think there are a number of elements that before Article 6 cooperation can start needs to be in place. Most of the time we think from the perspective of the host country only, but it's also a matter of the purchasing country as well. I'll start with the host countries first. I think the host countries need to have in place first a carbon market strategy, which means the country needs to reflect upon which activities the country wants to dedicate to international cooperations and which ones instead they want to retain for NDC achievement, for mitigation and NDC achievement. They could also think about which sectors and which part of the NDC, if they have a conditional component of the NDC, and also what price, because it's important to understand, because of the corresponding adjustment that needs to be, that must be applied on both sides. I think it's important that host countries also reflect on which, at which price they're ready to let go some of their mitigation to other countries. The second, I think it's more of a legal ground. They need to have the governance structure that is in place, and having then a regulatory framework. For regulatory frameworks, it sounds generally as a buzzword, but what we mean here is that the host country, but actually this applies also to the purchaser country, needs to have clear regulations on how to engage in Article 6. This means on which is the right body within the country that underwrites the cooperation and the bilateral agreements, the cooperative approaches, but also what's the governance structure that needs to be put in place, what are the financial procedures, more importantly also who is the body internally that provides the authorization to the activities and for a use later on. In this case, as you said, like it's a pity that Daniel from Ghana is not here, because we think that Ghana is a front runner in this space. They put a lot of they put up a lot of structures that are quite helpful already to mobilize Article 6 cooperation on the ground. The third one again are institutional arrangements. For instance, again, Ghana put forward the Carbon Market Office, I think it's called, that they are the national designated authority. They already came up with a framework. Then there are some operational procedures, so who does the validation of the activities, the tracking, and who applies the corresponding adjustments and where. And finally, the last point is on the infrastructure. So we need to have, there are a lot of talk about registries at the international levels, but countries need to also have a way to track and to record the transactions also at the national level. So ideally, a country would also have in place a registry and an MRV framework that will allow us to put in place. So I think this is quite a big infrastructure, broadly speaking, to put in place. It's not impossible. We know that there are some countries that have already, not only Ghana, but we also heard yesterday at an Article 6 implementation partnership side event, a lot of other countries have put together different structures, but very functioning, that are already facilitating Article 6 implementation, for instance, Nigeria and others. So I think these are not really barriers, but it's a sort of prerequisite. From the one last word on the buyers' perspectives. As well as I was saying, also the buyers, they need to do their homework on their side. Especially the authorization has to come from both the host party, but also the buyer's party. So they also need to have internal procedures, designated authorities as well. So I think it's on both sides. Once these elements are in place, then Article 6 cooperation can happen, especially under 6.2.
Okay, thanks, Luca. Well, VK, I'm sure you can complement to what was already a very comprehensive overview provided by Luca. Over to you.
Yeah, exactly. Luca has said everything. I think I can go back to the audience. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but I think if you can share, from your perspective, working very closely with countries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go a
Now-
bit into the practicalities.
All right. Now, see, I represent Asia and the Pacific, and I'll try to add 2 cents from the side of the developing countries. I think if you are an official or a project developer in a developing country, you are quite confused right now. You are dealing with a situation where the carbon markets are quite divergent and quite diverse, and they are distributed. The demand, people oftentimes come across compliance market, people come across voluntary carbon markets, people talk about and the demand coming from the governments to meet their NDC targets. Countries are also listening to the fact that large corporates have taken net zero targets, which is contributing to the demand in the voluntary carbon markets. And then each country has their own national circumstances, their national priorities, their national preferences, their previous experience with carbon markets, or their aspiration to be a part of market. So I think the first challenge, you asked the question, is first of all, countries need to wrap their head around and understand what are the complexities of the markets, what is the objective of their participation. In our previous presentations, we did talk about that, carbon markets is not the silver bullet, and countries really need to figure out whether or what type of carbon markets they would like to enter into, which is to complement their other national policies that they are working around. I think that's very important, and right now that is a biggest barrier, biggest challenge that countries are trying to work on. And then to come to point that Luca was making, that what countries need to work at this point in time is to develop their national strategies, whether they would like to participate in carbon markets. If yes, then for what for? And if yes, then what are the sectors they would like to participate? What are the sectors they would like to keep for their domestic to meet their NDC target? Which sectors they would allow to carbon credits to be exported? Then translate those national strategies into the policy and the legislative frameworks, and then translate that into infrastructure in the form of registry, for example, because it is very important that, in the Paris Agreement, we are talking of avoidance of double counting, corresponding adjustment, and a very robust infrastructure is very, very important. And I think that's where countries need to spend a lot of time, money, resources, and some of the countries in the Asia Pacific do not have that resources to do that. Even though during my presentation I did talk about that the countries, most of the 80% of the projects were hosted in Asia and the Pacific from the CDM times, but still there are a number of countries which do not have that kind of experience, and I don't blame them, because they're on their development pathways, but at the moment that is a challenge. But what's in my sense, what is really very important for the countries is to set their objectives, that whether they would like to participate in the market. Yes, if yes, then why? That's really very important. The second bit to my mind is very important, is to send a clear signal. I think we have met many of the speakers in the first round did talk about the participation of the private sector, which is very important. We really oftentimes talk about that if you really have to address 1.5 degrees goals, then the very strong engagement and participation of the private sector is going to be very, very important. But by the same yardstick, it's very important that the private sector in these developing countries get a right signal from the government that the government is going to be supportive of carbon market participation. The final point to my mind is that the governments and the private sector, all the stakeholders need to work together to build all that is required, to build the infrastructure, to build the policy, to regulations, the practices, the capacity for the co-creation of a high integrity carbon markets. Because if you want carbon markets to be really effective in catalyzing investments in low carbon technologies, then it is very important that we have high integrity carbon markets and there's a clear price discovery, and the prices of the carbon asset should be such that they are really incentivizing. I'll stop here.
Okay, thank you, VK. You started saying that you had nothing to add, but then I see there's a lot to be discussed here. I think to summarize, I think there are homeworks to be done to effectively participate in Article 6. There are administrative infrastructures that need to be put into place, but there are also political and economic decisions to make, both on the buying and selling side. And perhaps because the sellers tend to be developing countries and the potential impact of getting things wrong is bigger, that's where we need more capacity. We need perhaps a bit more time to kickstart the market. You ended on a note on the private sector, so that links well to Gina. And then, so perhaps I'll go to Gina first and then move on to Jung-hon. You have a slide, and I took a photo because it was very interesting, and I'll try to read out the roles of the private sector. You had 5 bullets. To scale up finance, promote technological innovation, provide expertise in project implementation, capacity building and knowledge sharing, and then influence on regulatory and policy development. Can you elaborate on these elements, perhaps say which one is the most important, where the role of the private sector is the greatest contributor in the success of Article 6 implementation, and also perhaps so far, where have the challenges been? I'd like you to elaborate on these themes.
I think the private sector plays a really important role in implementing the Article 6. Not only that they bring the financial resource into the market, I think that action itself is developing the market, actually. I have commented that that nothing was decided for COP28, but I don't think that was a stagnant. If you see it, a lot of the international standards initiatives have been made. I cannot, name, more because there's so much happened. So that actually create the major signals to the market that there could be the awareness, increase in the awareness and the interest in the carbon market in general. And because of private sector, they are the real players in the market with the technology and the knowledge. A lot of developing countries, they want the technology or the knowledge transfer, and so I think they play a very important role in that, because from our experience trying to conducting the feasibility study for potential 6.2 project, we have realized that there is a will and interest in the developing countries, but a lot of times there's no infrastructure. So that means there will be more required expertise or the capacity on the advanced, the countries from the private sector. And also, because of that, they can leverage the real case experience, because I don't think that the players are kind of waiting in line, because not only just for the regulations or other political issues, but maybe they just don't know how to proceed, the conducting this kind of or develop this kind of a project. So I think they play a very important role in providing the real case experience, so that people could actually learn from their experience. And because of that, I could probably say the last note that they can be very influential on the policy development and regulating the framework yes, making the framework.
Thanks, Gina. And since you ended on the influence of the policy framework by the private sector, I will take this chance to introduce the organization I work for. I'm used to moderating sessions at the AITA Pavilion, which is right over there, or in settings where everyone knows AITA. So I forgot to introduce AITA in the beginning. But we are a trade association. We have over 350 members, private sector organizations from all over the world. We have 3 members from Korea, only 3, and we hope that number will grow significantly as the journey of Korean carbon markets continues. We work on Article 6, especially here at COP, but we work on all type of carbon markets, and we provide our members with services on tracking policies around all types of carbon markets, including the ETS and the voluntary market. And we try to be an effective bridge between the private sector and policymakers. So I really support your last point. We can really establish a fruitful dialogue between the policymaker and the private sector to make sure that then the regulatory frameworks function. I'm going now to the last panelist, Jung Hon. And you represent one of the few countries that are actively looking to be buyers in the new Article 6 markets. So can you provide your perspectives on what it looks like to be one of the first in this field? What are the main challenges? And maybe if you can share a bit about any additional steps that we can expect from Korea in the Article 6 market.
Okay. Thank you for asking me, and I'm happy to hear, to explain and have a chance to our experience with you. As you know, under the Paris Agreement, all parties have obligation to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but they are very concerned about where and how to reduce greenhouse gases. Korea is making great efforts and proactively enacting domestic laws to solve this problem. It has set a large goal of reducing greenhouse gas by 37.5 million tons by 2030 by utilizing Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. But few countries have set such a large overseas reduction target as Korea. The international mitigation target has been set, but it is unclear how and how much it will go. So the amount that needs to be brought in from overseas is more than 37.5 million tons. This is because it is room for it to be used in the corresponding adjustment and also internal emission trading system. Korean government has been promoting international mitigation program last year. Is currently in the pilot stage. The detailed systems, such as the subordinate regulations of Article 6, have not yet been accomplished yet. So, and also this is a new task for the host country. So there's a lot of trial and error. Domestically, we are establishing the framework by creating regulations and signing agreement and MOUs with the several countries and conducting pilot project with those countries. Looking at the project units, there's still a lack of specific systems and also cases. So we are in stage of learning how to proceed with while conducting this project. What we felt while conducting this individual project as a pilot is that the scale of reduction is not large. Of course, there are some projects with large reductions, but there are also some issues in terms of methodology and also verification. If we proceed with such small-scale project, we have to execute 1,000 or 10,000 of project to almost 1,000 project of 37.5 billion tons. This in itself is a very difficult task, and it will be a huge administrative burden to bring it into Korea, Korea through ITMO adjustment. The transaction costs are also significant, and it is questionable whether we can secure 37.5 billion tons or more with this approach alone. So we think we need to find a new approach. Finding a new approach is also a matter that requires discussion with other countries, and we need to seriously discuss the necessary procedures and methodologies for specific implementation, as well as the possibility of transferring the reduction amount. From the perspective of the host country, Article 6 of the Paris Agreement is complex and uncertain. When we talk with the host country, it is very difficult to proceed with the work because there are no experts who can understand and enforce the complex and uncertain system. No applicable methodologies, no related organizations, no laws and also regulations too. So if we make good use of Article 6, we will be able to find new opportunities for countries to reduce greenhouse gas emission also, and achieve sustainable development. In light of this situation, the agreement on the global carbon market relations should be concluded as soon as possible. In addition, since Article 6 requires cooperation between countries, it is important to promote international reduction projects consistently and quickly based on mutual trust. Although Article 6.2 is expected to be completed to some extent by 2024, the Korean government will understand the position of a host country through the learning by doing concept rather than waiting until then, and will cooperate with each other to create rules together. Lastly, we will promote various fields of project in conjunction with not only international greenhouse gas reduction project, but also package programs like capacity building of those country and ODA project too. Thank you.
Thank you. Really insightful, and I really appreciate that you mentioned to the learning by doing concept. And as someone who's been watching the negotiations for a few years, I don't think we will ever get to the end point. There will always be negotiators in some room here at COP negotiating on some details, but that absolutely should not mean that countries should not act. It would be an incredible missed opportunity, and we really need to learn by the example of countries like Korea. There was another theme I thought was really interesting in Jung-hoon intervention, was about the additional transaction costs, the significant transaction costs that exist, especially in the case of small-scale projects. Maybe I'll then ask Luca, VK, or Gina, whoever wants to chime in, to offer their thoughts. How can this be avoided or at least remediated? What would you suggest?
Thanks. I think the transaction costs are inevitable. As I was saying, for the countries, for both the host party, but also the purchaser party, because you will have to set up these structures, and setting up new structures definitely costs money. What Vike was saying at the very beginning, I think it's very important to think if the country wants to cooperate internationally and why, and if they want to do it, they should be there for the long run. We know that, of course, the ITMOs, they have an expiration date at the end of the NDC cycle, and every NDC cycle lasts 5 years. But setting up these structures comes with a cost, and so the country, if they set up the structure, it will probably be a way to amortize the cost over time. It would be probably a good way to think it for the long run. And then, yeah, it depends a lot on the bilateral agreements, I think. There are lots of ways in which a bilateral agreement can be structured between two countries, and to try to minimize the cost there in terms of which registries are used, etc., and through which ways also accounting could be somehow streamlined, always respecting with Article 6.2 accounting rules. But there are ways in which life can be made much easier for certain countries, for the accounting side and the registry side as well.
VK?
Thank you. I think this is a very genuine point, a genuine concern. My 2 cents, from the Kyoto Protocol time, we learned that the transaction costs tend to come down over a period of time once you have larger number of projects, and then you build on the economies of scale. I think that's very, very important. 2, I think it is very definitive that the Article 6 rules are uncertain and complex, and I did allude to these when I was making my first intervention, and I really hope that the negotiation process, which is ongoing right now, gets us at least over this uncertain phase. I think that's going to be making it easier. But apart from the transaction cost, the other barrier or the problem that the project developers or the countries are facing is the fear of overselling. I think that's one part that I would like to highlight. The countries have their own NDC targets, and their prime responsibility is to meet their own NDC target in the first place. So countries right now are, struggling to figure out whether they are going to meet their NDC targets, whether they will have credit surplus, which they should be exporting, which they can make commitment for. And I think that is also creating a lot of inertia into real transactions. While we see a number of bilateral agreements happening, very few real transactions are happening. So when there's a very small number of transactions that are happening, the transaction costs are likely to be very, very high. So I think this is very important. The other bit, I think, which I should also highlight to support the point that Luca made in his first intervention from the buying fraternity side, we have been buying credits for a very long period of time, and my interaction with the buying fraternity right now is that while there are very few number of buyers who are very active, but at the same time, their feeling is there are very short supply of high quality carbon credits. So when there's not enough transaction, not enough credits, the transaction cost has to be very, very high once again. So I think this is very important. And just to highlight once again ADB's work, I did mention during my presentation that we have established Article 6 support facility, which among others also provides the downstream support. So the downstream support is to help project developers to develop the projects, whether to develop the PDD in the new avatar, or to develop methodologies, or to help countries and the project developers to be in a position where the projects are able to generate carbon credits and they are market ready. So this is our 2 cents to the co-creation of market and also the supply line. Ultimately, what we need is a large market which is liquid, the large number of transactions, there's a real price discovery, and then we can look at the smooth flow of carbon finance that can catalyze investments in low carbon technologies. I'll stop here.
So, yeah, thanks. As usual, a few additional key insights. I think on this point of the transaction costs, the low supply, especially low supply of high integrity credit that VK mentioned, I think there are a few developments that can help. I think up until now, if a country wanted to engage in Article 6, the only avenue that was available was 6.2, which by definition has higher transaction costs, and the homeworks that the countries involved need to do are heavier. Now next year, the way has been cleared for Article 6.4 to be operational. So that's one development. The other one that I think may be beneficial is the development of new methodologies around so-called energy transition credits. So these are methodologies that credit the retirements of large power plants, potentially at the jurisdictional level, so the transformation of a country's energy system. And again, this would be millions of credits potentially in blocks, and some of those could be authorized under Article 6. So yeah, Gina, I see you have the microphone. On either of them, on energy transition credit or 6.4, what are your points?
I just wanted to make a comment that there's also a linkage between the 6.2 market and also VCM and compliance linkage. So I would think the market will be bigger in the future.
And I don't know, someone else on 6.4? No. So maybe I'll stay with Gina. I think many on the audience, especially those who are not from Korea, will be interested in hearing views about what to expect, what kind of additional support may be available, additional policies, just to get a better idea of where the Article 6 market is heading in Korea.
Actually, this is something that we have, as an NGO and also developing projects in different markets. This is actually the kind of a question that we have for Korean government, because we feel that our carbon market is kind of constrained to just the compliance market. So I would be personally too happy to see the more conversion of the market in Korea, and and maybe Mr. Yang could comment more on this from the Korean government side.
Yes, if there are comments.
Well,
Very well.
I'd like to just add just a general thing. What we learned when we proceed this project with other countries, I think most important thing is the mutual trust. Okay, so we live different places. We live in different countries. We have different situation. But if we think differently, we are such as we are family, then we can do anything, everything. So we can yield many things to other countries. So we have to think we are family. We have to go together. We have to set the rule together. Then we can fix it. So if we start from negative points, it is impossible to solve this problem. But if we start from positive positive ideas, then we can solve any problem. Okay. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
I'm looking at the panelists if there are any further thoughts. So perhaps we can have a couple of questions from the audience. Now I'm looking at the audience. If I see anyone, please raise your hand. Okay, one there at the back, and we can probably take two together and answer them jointly.
Thank you. So my name is Gajbin. I am from Iraq. And as you know, I mean, it's very new, the carbon credit and those things to our country. And I'm leading the largest climate action organization, which is a local in Iraq. So we had some projects like planting millions of trees and biochar project. But, the problem is it's very new, just like I said, for our government. So I want your advice. I mean, as a local organization that we want to make our country to go to the carbon credit and things that you told us in the panel. What's your advice for me? I mean, what are the checkpoints that I should go? Then we can have these projects here in Iraq, I mean.
Okay, good question. Anyone else? It doesn't look like, so maybe this is probably for our three experts from international organizations or the private sector. Who wants to? Luca? Yeah.
Sorry. Thanks. Thanks for the question. I think there are a number of international organizations that offer support to countries that are interested in participating in Article 6 cooperation. That would be my first suggestion. Of course, an answer on a panel in 5 minutes is not going to solve the whole problem, but I think that would probably be my first suggestion to go. So I know of a few, of course. There is a World Bank that has, for instance, the Partnership for Market Implementation. There is GGI as well that have a number of initiatives related to facilitating market readiness as well for countries to be ready. In terms of steps, I think I've mentioned them at the beginning, the first intervention here on the panel. There are a number of institutions that your country would need to put in place to participate in this cooperation. But again, there are also a lot of studies actually that are coming out now on experiences from other countries and lesson learned. Even if it's early cooperation, there are quite a number of lessons learned. So this would be my two recommendations. First, to look for international support. There are a lot of capacity building programs. I just mentioned a few. I forgot one that I think is very important is Article 6 implementation partnership that is actually fostered by the government of Japan, plus a number of other organizations, including AITA. And I think that would be probably a very good place to start as well to request for support. And then the second one, there are a lot of knowledge products that will guide you and you could look there what are the lessons learned from other developing countries. I'll leave it at that for now.
Thanks, Luca. I know Luca was trying to pass the ball to me by mentioning knowledge products. Knowledge products here means publications. So last year we did a paper we launched at the COP. It's about national strategies for carbon markets. I think that could be ADB, Asian Development Bank. If you search on the Google, you will find it. So it will guide you how, as a country, you should see what are the steps that you need to take to enhance your readiness. But since you are a policymakers, it is going to be very important for you to take a holistic view of why you need to participate in the markets, right? You have an NDC target, how you're going to achieve, and as a part of your broader climate policy architecture, where do you think carbon markets fit in? That's the first question that you need to assess and answer. And if you're convinced that carbon markets is something good instrument for your country context, then I think you need to charter the path of developing a national strategy. And then in consonance with the national strategy, you'll develop your own policies and a framework to operationalize different carbon markets. And then you will build on infrastructure in the form of a registry and institutions, and finally build the capacity, including that of the private sector. So I think this is a kind of a pathway, but please be mindful that you have a country which has its own very specific national ambition, national circumstances, right? So you do not need to follow any template for that. So you need to make your own pathway. You need to make your own strategies which are more suitable to your own circumstances. I think this is very, very important. This is my advice to you.
Gina?
Last comment. Maybe you can reach out to some of the experts already have the experience in your country. So probably the experts done a lot of feasibility studies from small to large scale pipeline projects. So yeah, that could be very helpful too, because situations and the conditions vary from country to country. Even within the country, it varies from region to region. So you might want to reach out for that.
Okay, maybe a very quick comment. I'd like to add something to that. I think being aware and understand who will buy the carbon credits is very important. Whether you develop the project for an NDC like Korea, or you're thinking about private sector buyers, it's very good from the very beginning to make sure that the right type of carbon credits, the right type of projects are developed with the right standards and so on. And on that, unless the panelists have any very, very final remark, which doesn't look like, we're going to close the session. And please join me in thanking the panelists for their great insights.
Thank you, Mr. Vanzani and everyone. This is great discussion. To close, I'd like to invite Mr. Poonam Shin, Executive Director for Climate Change Response at the Korea Energy Agency.
안녕하세요. Good afternoon. Yeah. First of all, I thank you for the moderator and the presenters and all participants for this side event. Well, having actively participating the CDM project for last 20 years, Korea is willing to utilize Article 6 mechanism in the future. As you know, we think the Article 6 is a win-win situation for both host and the participating countries. You can utilize creativeness and dynamic of the market. That means you can use the investment together with the technology from the private sectors. So this gives us, especially for host country, for the work of sustainable development and the emission reduction. But as you know, the Article 6 mechanism is a little different from the CDM. So this is the new version of the market-driven mechanism. So we'll see in this mechanism, there will be more voice from the host country in the decision-making process of the implementing project. So from the host, on the part of the participating countries, we'll looking forward for the fully operationalization of the Article 6, given our successful experience of the CDM project. But at the same time, this is the uncharted territory. So I think we need courage on the part of the host countries, at the same time, as well as the participating member countries. Lastly, I think we need a multi-stakeholder approach together with the international organization. Here we have some representative of the ADB and then IEA and the IETA, together with the civil society like Climate Change Center. So we should work together to achieve our given goal of climate action or the climate financing. So Korea will work together with those organizations to achieve our goal. Actually, 12 years ago, Korea established the international organization named Global Green Growth Institute, which specialized providing the strategy for developing countries in designing their low-carbon green growth development. And also 12 years ago, we host the Green Climate Fund, who specialized the financing. So Korean government, now we are ready to work together with all stakeholders to achieve our goal in climate action and climate finance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shin, for wrapping up the session. This concludes our seminar. We hope you found today's discussion was valuable and inspiring. Thank you all for your participation, and we look forward to continued collaboration in achieving global NDCs. Thank you. Bye-bye.